Howdy, folks. My name is Sam. How many of you were at my ADFS session on Monday? All right. So most of you probably know me. I've been at Microsoft for a little over 19 years, and I've pretty much spent my entire time at Microsoft within the identity division. I started at Active Directory. Right now, I'm one of the group program managers in the identity division. Now, because it's very relevant to how we think about common identity, I thought I'd kind of explain how even our organization is. So we have one identity division which has, you can think of as 3 compartments. One compartment is focused on Windows Server, Active Directory, ADFS, ADLDS, all the core in terms of providing directory capabilities and authentication capabilities using Windows Server. Then we have another compartment which is really focused on Azure Active Directory, which drives our entire business cloud, which means every Office 365 customer uses Azure Active Directory, and that's another part of it. And finally, we drive Microsoft accounts, authentication and security protection of Microsoft accounts. So it becomes our consumer side, which light up a lot of Office scenarios as well. For the consumer world. So in the context of one common identity, it's really important because that's how we are. We think about these things in one consistent way of how we do things on premises as well as in the cloud. My Twitter handle is @MrADFS. Usually I'm pretty good at responding on Twitter, so if there are any questions which we can't answer, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter as well. So before I get started, now I wanted to highlight one aspect. Within Microsoft, it's very interesting and unique from us at Microsoft because we support a lot of workloads, including identity on premises. And usually, just like I mentioned how our identity division focuses on both sides of the house, we have all these workloads also thinking about it in a similar manner for the cloud. And this is where the consistency of Microsoft kind of comes to play, where it doesn't matter if your workload is on premises, it is also in the cloud. So we think about this in a consistent way so that it makes it easy for people to transition or have what I call as hybrid, because hybrid is the key word now for pretty much any organization that I think is about 250 users or more. You may be hybrid for a short time as you kind of move to the cloud, or you might be hybrid for the foreseeable future. So in that world, we within Microsoft believe that, at least in the enterprise space, is that we believe that the hybrid is a very key aspect that every bit of our design has to take into consideration. So this is what I want to focus on a little bit in the session. Now, hybrid does not mean that every feature that we do has exact parity across on-premises and in the cloud. What it means is that we will ensure that the core scenarios that you are trying to address can work in the hybrid environment. And you will probably see 2 things from us in terms of how we make investments. It is likely, and you probably heard Satya talk about it as well, you've heard that when we make investments, for us, we take a cloud-first philosophy. Now, but that doesn't mean it doesn't come on premises. And there are 2 ways in which we think sometimes about on premises. One, we bring an equivalent capability on premises, or we deliver cloud services to essentially drive value for your on-premises investments. I'll talk about this and give you a few more examples in the ID space later. Now, when we think about at a broad level, especially from an enterprise standpoint, we see this as 4 kind of key pillars focused on IT and developers as well. So one focus, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is common identity. What does that mean in this hybrid world, and how can you benefit both from our cloud as well as our on-premises investments in this space? The second is about management and security. This is about being able to both manage your devices and provide security solutions across your cloud as well as the on-premises stacks. The third one is really focused on data, because data is fundamentally drives pretty much every application and most scenarios, and that has a viewpoint where you may have some data that can be moved to the cloud or is authored in the cloud, and some data that might live on premises and may not be able to move to the cloud for a while as well. And finally, the other area is that when we think about Microsoft, the broad stack, it is about apps. We have a very avid app development ecosystem, and it's been an amazing journey in the last 3 to 5 years where we've continued to embrace other platforms. We provide developer support for other platforms and how it can extend both to your on-premises environment as well as in the cloud. Now, when we take the view of Azure, what does that look like at a very high level? I'm not going to spend too much time on the other components, but at least for you to get a sense of what that means. So in the identity, we have both Active Directory on premises on Windows Server as well as Azure Active Directory in the cloud for businesses. In the management and security space, you have a wide variety of solutions that we support with SCCM, and in the cloud we have SC or System Center, and in the cloud we have OMS, we have Intune as ways in which you can manage your devices. Within the data stack on premises, not only do you have SQL Server, you've got file servers as well, or in some cases SharePoint servers. And in the cloud, there's a wide variety in Azure in terms of the type of storage capabilities that you have. You could have all the way to bottomless databases that you have in the cloud, which really highlights some of the power of the cloud in terms of data storage. And finally, across that entire ecosystem, we provide Azure that has a lot of functionality, and recently we announced and released Azure Stack, which is taking your Azure and then providing it into your own privatized data center, and this is maybe very relevant for, we think it's most relevant for financial organizations, health organizations, as well as government organizations. It becomes, I need an expansible cloud, but in my private data center, and that's now each of these segments probably have more detailed sessions, so I'm going to focus on common identity. Now, I want to first kind of explain a couple of concepts which is very philosophical in nature as to how we approach it. Now, typically, identity, a very key trend that we see is about how to enable productivity, but in a secure fashion. So in that world, for us, identity becomes the control plane because the network that pretty much all of you depend on is devolving or cannot be trusted in some fashion or the other. So in that world, we see a more an important part to play in really driving that security by thinking about it as identity as the control plane that determines who has access to what and then drives that further. Now, typically, you have your end user. Now, in the past, they probably had a desktop or a laptop that they did work on. And what it typically was joined to Active Directory, and you accessed a whole bunch of applications. And that was a huge shift from the world of the 80s where every application had a siloed identity system, and you moved over to a unified identity system so that you got that benefit of both common management as well as a seamless single sign-on type of access to any of these applications that were AD integrated. Now, this shifted hugely with two things. One is the prevalence of devices, mobile devices, that were not your typical desktop and laptop that still needed to access resource. And what was the application that was most fundamental in making that shift? It was mail. And people wanted access to email to work on the go and be able to be productive. The next huge shift that we saw in the industry is, I'm not sure, I've talked to quite a few CTOs or CFOs, and this term comes all the time, which is CapEx to OpEx. Now, as part of that fundamental shift, everyone is looking to see what are the workloads that you configure and manage that you can move to a SaaS-based service. It could be Exchange moving to Exchange Online, or it could mean from your on-premises HR provisioning system to SuccessFactors or Workday. These are the types of changes that are happening. And in this world, Azure Active Directory plays a key role because it is a cloud-based system that can work seamlessly to connect to applications, especially SaaS-based applications. Now, so in this world, for us, what we define as that common identity is a single fabric of identity. And it contains users and devices that can think about it as extending your directory from on-premises to expand into the cloud, and then becomes the one single fabric from which your users, it doesn't matter of whether they are accessing applications that are AD integrated or they're accessing cloud applications, which could be Microsoft first party like Office 365 and Azure, or it could be third party applications like Salesforce or Box or Facebook at Work or even Google Apps. So all of these are become this one fabric of both users and devices that now has its reach into applications and whatever context that the end user needs to reach out into, and provides this consistent way. Now, why does that matter? Because then you can think about your provisioning, deprovisioning, joiner, leaver scenarios all in one consistent manner, and that becomes that fabric in which you operate under as potentially as an identity admin. Now, one of the key things is that with Azure Active Directory, we've got tons of capabilities, and we've been, I think for those of you, how many of you went to Alex and Naso's session yesterday? All right, not too many people. So where we actually walked through a bunch of use cases that on what these capabilities can drive what use cases. But to highlight, I wanted to highlight one thing that my team drives, and this is again goes back to that philosophy that I described earlier. In this world, there is something called Connect Health in here. Now, it's a cloud-based service, but what we do is we monitor on-premises components so that we can understand how you run your domain controllers or your ADFS systems and your sync, and then alert if there are any things are wrong, and provide not just alert but also provide reporting and analytics on top of that. So this way, an identity, but the fundamental notion that drove us was that, hey, we want to power things from the cloud, but still kind of help our customers who have Active Directory or Federation services and have this one console where they can go look at it as an identity admin in some ways and then look at it consistently. So that's an example of how the cloud power is applied to an existing on-premises identity infrastructure and delivers additional value. Now let's go a little deeper. Now within this session, after each of these sections, I will probably pause for questions, and we can take a few questions at the end of each section. Now we break it down into three kind of core components or use cases or scenarios here, which is first one is really focused on the end user and the value that the end user gets. Now in that world, jumping ahead. So this is one identity, thousands of apps. Now, that one identity is both the user and the device in which that they essentially normally log in. It could be a domain join device. It could be an Intune enrolled device. So these are all possibilities in there. But what it means is that that fabric now can then both reach out to all of a slew, I don't even know the number anymore, of SaaS applications. It can reach out into on-premises applications. Now, what do I mean by on-premises applications? With Azure AD Application Proxy, we have the ability for you to take an existing web application and quickly, within a span of a few minutes, you can enable access, remote access, in a secure manner. So that gives you the ability, because what we see is typically is that, especially for people who are on the go, who need to be outside the environment, people like salespeople, they need reports, quick access to reports that they've had access to. SQL Server reporting services is widely used within the enterprise to kind of make it available. And the application proxy makes it seamless for you to quickly enable that level of productivity for your users, but still keep it in a secure way. And I'll cover the secure bit later. Now, not only that, from an end user perspective, thinking about that hybrid view, we provide self-service capabilities. One of the most common functions that people struggle with, how do I reset the password for end users? Now, just the amount of cost that happens as part of making you go to help desk is sometimes quite challenging for organizations. So this is where some of the self-service capabilities, such as self-service password reset or self-service group management, which means, hey, I don't have to, my admin team or help desk team don't have to manage groups. I can delegate the group management to the business owner, and they can decide who to add and who to remove as part of doing this. So we provide those types of capabilities as well. Now, a very important thing, and this is kind of huge. How many of you heard the Teams announcement for guests? Okay, so what we see as an industry shift is the need to collaborate more and more, right? It is, I am sharing a document with someone else, or I need to consume a document from someone else. So in this world, collaboration is a key aspect. Or I need to share it with my vendor, all right? It's a very common notion. The challenge is from before, maybe a decade ago, it started as, let me manage that account, which means I own the identity lifecycle of the account, and which means I own credential management of the account and pay for the cost of a password reset, because it took them 80 days, they came back in, they forgot their password, so I have to go help them reset their password. That shifted a little bit in terms of how can we enable this through federation, because the problem was that if that person was fired from their organization, you may or may not have heard that they have left the organization. So they still have access to your documents, and it was a relationship based on the business. So that shifted a little bit by moving over to federation, where things like, this is where it was our bread and butter from the ADFS side, just enabling SharePoint federation to another organization. So that happened, which solved some of the problems, because I didn't have to deal with credential management, or an account provisioning, deprovisioning was handled on the partner organization side. But just to kind of go enable some of these federations and go figure this out, took time. It was more a policy decision, and there's a bunch of things which was quite complicated in nature. So this is where the Azure AD B2B platform makes this so easy. The rate at with which organizations are jumping onto Azure AD as part of Office 365 or Azure is huge. So at that point in time, it is quite likely that the person that you need to collaborate with already has an Azure AD account. We use this fundamental notion to say, okay, how do we make this a lot simpler? And in that world, it's as simple as any one of you, of course, your admin must have configured it to say, I allow my end users to invite, all right, can go say, hey, I want to share a document in SharePoint Online with someone else, and I want to invite them into my organization. So essentially, you are a business sponsor in some ways for that person. This way, let's imagine I was invited into your tenant. I receive an email that says, okay, such and such organization and such person essentially is sharing a document for you. We need you to redeem this invitation. And I click on it. I log in using my own company's credentials. And as a result, now I then have access to the document in a partner organization. We make that really simple for you, and the growth of this area is huge. So so these are like some of the key capabilities really focused on end user experiences of benefiting. Now, all of this, like the self-service password reset, it works with your on-prem AD. Your self-service group management can work with your on-prem AD. you can go create Office 365 groups and bring them as on-premises DLs. So those are all aspects in which where we think about that hybrid view and say, how can you operate as one single notion? Now, there's still ways for us to continue to kind of improve based on your feedback, but that is the philosophical thinking in terms of how we think about that common fabric that helps drive your end user experiences and connecting them to the applications that they need access to. I'm going to move on to a demo after I log in. So the demo should be pretty quick. So if anyone have questions in this area, like in about 2-3 minutes, come over to the mics and feel free to ask any questions. So I'm going to go to myapps.microsoft.com and think of this as my app launching dashboard in some ways. It's nice because I can be at a friend's house and I can seamlessly, this is one URL that I remember, and I can kind of get there. You can already see the branded experience that is company specific. So now I'm logging into this one common kind of like portal, which clearly shows me all the apps that I normally use or have been delegated to me, or where someone else has provisioned access for me to some of these applications. So now imagine, let's say I stored some documents in Box. Box is right here. Okay. So I'm going to go and say, OK, I'm going to click on Box. That's the initial, because I'm in private. And that's it. I did not have to provide my credentials again. It was seamless access to all the applications that I have. So that is the power of like single sign-on into all of these applications, where you have this one place, you can go see the applications that you normally typically use, and then as a result, I can go and get you into the application in a seamless manner. Because I hate like typing passwords all the time, which is what I do in demos all the time. But now let's say that was a cloud-based service. Now let's imagine that I have to go see a report that is on premises. And just to show you that, we've got a application that is behind my firewall, all right? And we've published that out through the application proxy. And all I did was click on that. And hopefully you can see there's a URL that is the appproxy.net. And that's it. I am signed in. And one additional thing that to add is that we established a partnership. There are different kinds of applications that could exist behind your firewall. It can be token-based applications, which means that they use SAML tokens or OpenID Connect. It could mean, which we support, it could mean you're using Kerberos integration. Like imagine a SQL Server reporting services report, which is kind of uses Windows integrated authentication, which you can go publish because the app proxy takes care of doing the initial login, all right, which is the single sign-on part. And then behind the scenes, it will transition you over to a Windows context so that then you can access as yourself as to whatnot. And even this works for B2B users as well. So in case you need to share something like this to a B2B user or a partner user, that works as well. Then we have a couple of set of apps which may depend upon, we call them as ESSO apps, which are dependent upon headers or cookies into the apps. I don't remember when, but it's at least less than a year, we announced a partnership with Ping, where they have a Ping access, which can do all of those types of transitions over from a traditional token from the app proxy, and then moves that over to something that the application understands, either as a header or a cookie. So it gives you a vast variety of ways in which you can do that. And that application proxy can also be used to protect your VDI gate, which means if you're using a virtual desktop solution, you can then get into that VDI gateway through the application proxy as well, and then initiate your VDI sessions. So these are all kind of possibilities where the key point is it's not just about cloud apps. It is also about all of these on-premises applications that you use. Now, within the same application panel, I can go to Profiles. I can change my password, as well as I can also reset my password, because this is the self-service reset password capabilities. I can go add myself, request to add myself to groups, or I can manage group memberships as well within that same portal. It is all focused on providing a great end-user experience to get their job done with as little hassle as possible and in a consistent manner. Any questions?
The big question is, does this require an Azure AD premium license to do all this?
There are some capabilities, and there is a link in terms of differentiating between those. There are some capabilities that come as part of your basic Azure AD, and there are some capabilities that do require premium.
Okay,
And
thank you.
like self-service password reset is a premium capability. Anyone else? Okay, so let's move on. So the next is really about managing access and protecting identities. Now, in this world, we talked a little bit about managing identity lifecycle consistently. Now, the key thing that I wanted to call out is essentially where we are. It's our risk-based protection platform. This platform is utilizing machine learning. It is utilizing data from a set of cyber authorities, and including certain things that we get from Azure as well. So to kind of drive two things. What is the risk of the user? What is the risk of the session? And that can fundamentally be used to drive. Previously, you may have had a complicated SIEM system to kind of go do this. But then you would have to go figure out what this tends to be. You need to analyze it, and then you need to decide on what action. But the nice thing about identity protection is that you can use that in an automated fashion, because all these apps that you had, you can protect them and say, okay, if a user is at risk, do I want them to prompt for multi-factor, or do I want to block them? Those are very simple things, and so that I get notified as an admin and then decide, okay, what else do I need to do to essentially protect? So which means your apps are always protected in some fashion or the other. Now, this also comes with a core portion of our conditional access platform. Conditional access is pretty simple. It is really giving you the ability to author a security policy that defines who can access what under what condition. Now, it can be a set of users, which can be defined by a group, which can be a dynamic group as well. All right, it can be based on location, in which we have the notion of inside your network, or you can define your trusted IP ranges, or you can define geolocation. I wouldn't say geolocation. I would say it's a country-based approach, saying that I only allow access, or I don't allow access from countries XYZ. So those are the types of things that you can do based on location. It can be based on a device. You can say, I only allow access from a compliant device, which could be a SCCM reported domain join device, or it could be an Intune protected iOS, Android, or Mac device. So I could do that. Or I could say, no, I'm going to let it only for my domain join devices. Or we announced recently as well in this conference, which is the support for doing I only allow access from a managed application if you're coming from iOS or Android, which means that you need to be an application where you have controls within the application container. So a good example is that you say you can set a policy through Intune that says when you're accessing Outlook Exchange from Outlook Mobile, you must have enforced a PIN on the application, or you can't do cut, copy, and paste if you're not on a managed device. Those are there's a wide variety of policies that you can go do that. And finally, it's the risk factor that I just described. Now, one thing that I want to kind of make sure, throughout my sessions, as well as when talking to customers, I've been reinforcing, protect your admins, protect your admins, protect your admins. All right? What does that mean? Which means make sure very few people have persistent admin roles. then what else does that mean? It means make sure that you have a trail when you are elevating to people. Make sure it's time bound. Those are all kind of core principles, because your admins essentially, which a lot of you are, compromising your account tends to be one of the worst things for any cybersecurity attack, right? So in that world, make sure that all of these things are ensured. And again, it goes back to the hybrid view. We support a privileged access management through our MIM. We added support in AD in 2016 to allow TTL-based groups, so which means your admin groups can functionally handle this notion of, at the core of AD, we said, you are part of this admin group only for the next 30 minutes. Which means after that, your TGTs are cleared out, your service tickets are not valid anymore. So as a result, you will get like a very limited access from your admin. And we layered MIM on top so that you can drive a workflow process as to how to kind of elevate people to do that. Similarly, we support now with PIM in the cloud so that you can manage your directory roles. So an example is global admins, or your exchange admins, or there's user admins. There's a bunch of roles, and you will see roles, more and more roles coming up, directory roles coming up in the cloud. Think of this as an equivalent of how we did built-in security groups in the past in AD. Think about the directory roles, and is an equivalent concept up in Azure AD as well. So that's something that we offer support for time-based access reviews, which means you need to be attested to be a global admin by self-attested, which means you can capture that, or attested by someone else who is reviewing all the global admins, and it is recorded within the system that you can then get reports to report out to your compliance auditors. So these are all capabilities there. I keep referring to make sure you're protecting your admins, and that is huge in the identity world, where now identity control becomes the new kind of like control plane in terms of doing that. So that is, again, it highlights that we think about this very similar ways. We may not have apples to apples in all features, but ensure that we have the core concept of protecting your admins being available both in our on-premises side as well as in the cloud side. Now, I'm going to do a quick demo, I'm going to use the same machine. So I'm going back to our apps. Now the nice thing is I can just search for my apps. So one of the things that we did as part of the conditional access policy is that I said you must have MFA. And if you notice, initially I did not sign with an MFA, and in this case it knew I was Sam and looked at the policy. Oh, to access Salesforce, Sam needs to log in with multi-factor authentication. And I'd already registered my phone as an alternate factor that I can do to support MFA, and it just called me, and there are multitude of ways. You can have notification, you can have SMS, all of those types of capabilities. And we also just announced like integration with third-party providers as well, so we have this ability. Similar concept where we can also support your on-prem systems like ADFS to assert MFA in this case as well, so that if you've integrated MFA into ADFS, that works as well. Same thing, hybrid. We're kind of making sure that the core scenario works across the key ways in which we see customers deploy as well. Any questions on this? Please.
I really like the theme of protecting your admins. How do we convince the Microsoft licensing guys to allow us to license identity protection for a subset of our tenant, so we can do risk-based conditional access at target or GAs?
So great question. Identity protection at the moment is really about the full set of users that log in, all your active users, and there's no differentiation in terms of doing that. Now, from an admin's perspective, the privileged identity management notion, you can provision the P2, just get P2 for your admins, and then always do elevation to that, which is one possibility for you. Risk-based, yes. I will convey that back to our business group. I'm the engineering guy. All right, so, okay. Yes, sir.
Is about man-in-the-middle attacks against conditional access. How would you build a conditional access policy from a credential harvest, considering, say, all the users have MFA?
Mm-hmm.
So then they're just doing, Pavlovian's dog of, oh, I go to this page, it looks exactly like the home realm discovery or an ADFS page, right? They do their thing, and then it just passes it through. What's the best way to?
No, so there are two parts. One part is if you're protecting the MFA, there is always two credentials, all right? So that world, you are always protecting the application and the data, all right? Then there's the second part. As long as you have password, it is phishable, all right? Any time that you're exposing a password, it is phishable. So in that world, go back to my session from Monday where I really talk about death to passwords and how you can kind of get to a passwordless solution, because that's the true essence of how we do this. Now we do a lot of things in the cloud as well in terms of protecting our passwords. We check for leaked credentials. There's a bunch of things that we go do in terms of doing that. But everyone needs to start thinking about, especially for extranet-based access, how do I get away from a password-based approach?
So even in a passwordless solution, what would be the best way? Would it be a conditional access or something to,
So
stop
conditional
a
access,
harvest, right?
Yeah, because there's no credential to harvest that can be replayed.
Right, but they could they still do a man in the middle?
No, not across some of the solutions that we talk about, where we can do certificate-based authentication in which your keys are safely stored. You have to be, or we're doing TPM-protected asymmetric keys, or essentially it's the device where I showed how do I log into ADFS with Azure MFA, a TOTP, which is bound to my device.
Right.
So these are ways in which is always changing. So it is not a replayable credential. Passwords are replayable credential, because all you need is to get it from outside, and you just need malware, one machine to be compromised by malware because someone clicked on a crazy link, all right? So in that world, at that point in time, the malware can talk to the cloud service, it can get this and then jump to another machine and then start doing a whole bunch of things with lateral attacks. So getting away from passwords, especially for extranet, is really the way to really prevent that.
Okay, bind the device.
Yeah? Yes?
Yeah, just real quick, like MFA with PowerShell, because a lot of our global tenant admins, obviously they're running all the PowerShell commands to control and access users and make modifications. But especially with like the security and compliance PowerShell commands, they really don't support the MFA, like logging in and authentication. It seems like it's running a problem.
Come find me. I want to know which PowerShell, because it shouldn't be. We've been moving Office as well to get to modern authentication for PowerShell, which supports MFA. So let me know which PowerShell after this. All right. So my final part, yes, oh, sorry.
Yeah, one more question. In case of when a company uses ADFS, what do you recommend? MFA server on-prem or MFA cloud?
So in general, we want to move people over to our cloud-based services for our MFA. So if you're making the choice now, I would say choose the cloud-based, and it can work with the on-prem ADFS system as well. So because we have an inbox adapter that talks to the cloud, so in that world, I would say choose our cloud-based service.
Okay, are there any limitations to
There are differences in gaps, which we are working hard to address in the cloud. Okay? All right, finally, this is really focused, all the stuff that I said, like the last slide was really about focused on the admin. Now this is focused on the developer. Because one of the key things is we are part of pretty much every protocol, the board, for most of the key protocols that around identity. So, and we work with a whole bunch of industry partners in terms of shaping it to work well for all our customers. So in this world, we are standards based. Now, and so whether it's an authentication related protocols, which is OpenID Connect or SAML or WStar as well, which we support, or token based, which is like your JSON token formats for these modern APIs. These are all kind of this consistent standard based way so that you can build applications in one consistent way. Now again, the same common identity. All of these protocols are pretty much, maybe not all of them, except SCIM probably we don't. We have some variations of these on premises as well. Between ADFS, we support at least all of our authentication protocols. The whole intent is that I should be able to take an application and build and authenticate against this fabric in one way, and it should work whether I am on this side of the house or I'm on that side of the house. So taking that one common consistent approach is there. A very important thing in terms of that, how that philosophy helps us is that, how many of you know what Azure Stack is? I just mentioned this earlier, so hopefully everyone should have raised your hands. Azure Stack is Azure in your private data center. So we have this notion of people requiring to put like elastic computing power on premises so that they can manage data analytics as well as have on-premises only applications. And one of the scenarios, there are two scenarios that it supports with identity. It can connect to AAD, all right, which is for the hybrid guy, or if you're in a totally disconnected environment, there is an in-box ADFS in AD that takes care of all of those. So we provide all the endpoints so that Azure, as the application, it doesn't have to think twice about whether it is working with the cloud or working with on-premises identity system, and so that we can go make it work. That is an example of how our thinking is in terms of this fabric that spans across both on-prem and the cloud, and at least how our thinking is. So again, we will continue to invest in open protocols, but at the same point in time, one of the things that I've seen happen, because I've been in the authentication and the identity space forever, is that usually what happens is that, especially in the cloud world, we see a use case, oh, we need to change some protocol stuff. At that point in time, you will see us add stuff which is not part of the spec, but then usually in about 2 to 3 years, we would have brought this back into the spec, and we would kind of push that needle forward as well. So that is pretty much the end of my session. Any questions on the developer front? Oh, we got one.
I was in the earlier session on cloud application security, so
Yep.
I sort of see some similarities to what this is offering. So where does that take over, and where does this?
So cloud app security is all about session management. Now, there are a few things. It helps with discovery, which is where we are doing this unified discovery scheme that will come through cloud app security. Then it is about session management, which means based on risk, what do you do? Do I encrypt the content, or do I prevent download? It's all the session itself rather than entry into the session. So we are, on the identity side, we control the entry into the session. Cloud app security controls what happens during the session within an application. So that is the key notion. Now, one of the things that I've seen customers commonly say is that we have 4 classification engines in Microsoft right now, and we're scratching our heads a little bit in terms of how to kind of bring that together, but that's conversations that are happening.
So I would start with this and my conditional policies, and that would sort of
Yes.
complement.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Do you complete your evaluations? I hope you found this session useful. I'm going to be here for a few more minutes, so if you have additional questions, feel free to come by. Thank you.